Looking to take your financial knowledge to the next level? You're in the right place. Welcome to Ask Ralph, offering accounting, technical, and financial advice. Whether you're looking to save taxes or improve your business, he's got you covered. Here's your host of Ask Ralph, Ralph Eastup Jr.
Welcome back to the Ask Ralph Show. Today we're joined by Ronnie Price, the founder and brewmaster of Blue Earl Brewing. Hello, Ronnie. I thought I would take a few minutes and ask you to tell us about the Blue Earl story.
Yeah, well, thanks for having me on, and I'm glad to be here. Yeah, so I started home brewing back in the early 90s. I learned how to brew beer from a coworker and bought my first homebrew kit and made beer in my kitchen. But ever since then, I've been an avid home brewer, joined the American Homebrewers Association, became a certified BJCP beer judge, and started judging competitions around locally and eventually nationally. Started entering my beers in homebrew competitions and started winning some ribbons and medals. Eventually won a national medal. Went on to study at the Siebel Institute of Technology for Brewing Science. And in 2012, I took the leap of faith and wrote a business plan and signed a lease on our current brewery here in Smyrna, Delaware in September of 2014. And we opened our doors in May of 2015.
So you certainly would consider yourself an expert in the beer brewing market. Tell me a little bit about the current state of the craft beer market.
Yeah, so the craft beer industry has witnessed phenomenal growth in the last 10 years. Back in the 1970s, there were a total of 40, maybe 40 some odd breweries in the country. Today we have over 6,000 breweries, and that have created over 456,000 jobs.
That's a lot of jobs.
Yes. And actually generating revenue of $67.8 billion. And since 2014, the industry has witnessed 21.7% increase in business or growth. And our local, I would say, the average craft beer consumer lives within 10 miles of a craft brewery.
Excellent. Now, one of the things we talked about in preparing for this interview today was the whole idea of local sales. Tell me a little bit about what your vision is there and how that's impacting the brewery business.
Yeah, so local is really what the market is all about. With the 6,000 breweries across this country and consumers living within 10 miles of a craft brewery, it's important to, really accent the local spirit of sourcing ingredients like, honey and hops and fruits and even grain. And, we here at Blue Earl, we support our local fire company by raising money for them. We also do a food drive that we just finished up at Thanksgiving, where we collected about 4 pallets of food that we delivered or had picked up by the Food Bank of Delaware. So local's really important to us.
Yeah, now one of the things we've talked about before, and since this is a business show, I thought we'd talk a little bit about business. What is the thing you think has been the biggest struggle in being a new entrepreneur and a new business owner?
So that would be, at this point, we've been in business for over 2.5 years, and probably the biggest challenge for me has been cash flow. So, generating enough revenue, keeping your expenses in line, and being able to have enough cash on hand to sustain the business operation is a huge challenge for our business. And I know a lot of other businesses like ourselves. And
I would have to agree with that. One of the things I notice in my practice, probably the biggest challenge for small businesses, the whole idea of capital and cash flow. You're absolutely right. Now, I know that it's getting to be the end of December, but talk to me a little bit about the events and any special things that are going on at the brewery.
Yes, we have some really cool events and things happening here. One of the big things that we have going on right now is a bottle series that we call the Big Earl series release, and we have 3 different beers that we're releasing, starting with a beer that was released back on Black Friday called Dark Star, which is a bourbon barrel aged imperial stout brewed with chocolate and coffee and aged in a bourbon barrel for 6 months. And that's available actually now. We have a second release coming up in the series this Friday, December 22nd. That beer is called I Put a Spell on You. It is also a bourbon barrel aged Belgian dark strong. That's about 12% alcohol by volume. And that was a beer that was brewed and aged in a bourbon barrel for 6 months. And it will be, again, available this Friday. And our third beer in that series is coming up on January 19th. It's called Big Boss Man, which is an American-style barley wine that was aged in a bourbon, American bourbon barrel. So those 3 beers are coming out. We also have a Christmas party coming up this Saturday called Merry Christmas Baby. And that would be held here at the brewery in 210 Artisan Drive in Smyrna, Delaware. So we also have a New Year's event coming up. It's called A Night to Remember. So check us out on blueworldbrewing.com. You can check us out on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and hope to see you.
And I think you mentioned before that you do have events throughout the year where you have live music and things like that. So I guess our listeners should be looking out for those events as well.
That's right. We're open 361 days a year. We have live entertainment weekly. We have food trucks, and we have about 7 outdoor events throughout the year.
Ronnie, I really appreciate your time today, and I'm sure my listeners will get in touch with you. And you mentioned that's blueearlbrewing.com, correct?
That's right.
Well, I would certainly encourage everybody to take a look at Blue Earl Brewing and certainly include them in your plans for the future. Thank you, Ronnie.
Thanks a lot for having me.
As Ronnie mentioned, you can reach Blue Earl at the blueearlbrewing.com. And listen, they really are a local business that is interested in giving back to the community. So I would definitely encourage all of my listeners to go see them. They're at 210 Artisan Drive in the Smyrna Industrial Park. You can also find their products in many of the local stores and different areas in the community. So again, that's Blue Earl Brewing, and they're located at 210 Artisan Drive in the Smyrna Industrial Park in Smyrna, Delaware. Thank you for listening to this part of the show.
You've been listening to Ask Ralph, brought to you by Saggio Accounting Plus. Please subscribe to and rate our podcast on Apple Podcasts or wherever you get your podcasts, and leave us a rating and review. Our podcast is produced by Carolyn Peters. Thank you for listening, and be sure to like us on Facebook and follow us on Twitter at Ask Ralph Media. You can also hear me each week on 1450 WILM and on 1410 WDOV in Delaware and on the iHeartRadio app. Submit your questions or ideas for future shows by sending an email to AskRalph@AskRalph.com.
The information contained in this episode of Ask Ralph is based on data available as of the date of its release. Saggio Accounting Plus and Ask Ralph Media Inc. is under no obligation to update this content if changes occur. Applying this information to your specific situation requires careful consideration of all facts and circumstances, and any information provided is not to be considered as financial, tax, or legal advice. Please consult your tax advisor or attorney before acting on any material covered.